All right, this is now being recorded. So Andrea, I will turn it over to you to share your screen and to go ahead and introduce yourself and your team.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Andrea Baya. Welcome to this webinar. Please let me know if you can see my screen. Joby, can you confirm that my screen is good to see?
Yep, it's perfect.
Great. Okay, we're going to go ahead and take it from here with this Bright Spot presentation. And today's presentation is going to be coming out of Lac Courte Oreilles Ojibwe schools. The grade band they serve is from phase to third grade, and they are located in Hayward, Wisconsin. Just as a reminder, as was previously read, this is the U.S. Department of Education disclaimer, and keep in mind that we are to adhere to this disclaimer that was previously read. And I just want to do a brief introduction of us, as we are the presenters. My name is Andrea Baya. I work with the Division of Performance and Accountability Division under Bureau of Indian Education. And I do oversee the Comprehensive Literacy State Development Grant at the ESEA level. And one of my sub-grantees is going to be co-hosting this presentation with me. And I would like to give her the opportunity to introduce herself as well. And she's the LEA presenter. Ms. White? Monica, are you there?
Everyone's muted, so when it's your turn to speak, just make sure you unmute yourself.
Okay, Buju, hello. I'm Monica White, Family and Child Education, Base Coordinator and Adult Education Teacher for the Lac Courte Oreilles Ojibwe schools located near Hayward, Wisconsin. And I'm also the CLSD Coordinator for grade band birth to third grade.
Okay, thank you, Monica. This is the introduction of the overview that we will be presenting today. And the overview of the initiative that we will be presenting is that the Bureau of Indian Education is very honored to showcase one of its CLSD subgrantees. As I previously mentioned, this is from the Lac Courte Oreilles Ojibwe schools in Hayward, Wisconsin. The school has done a phenomenal job in implementing a project that encompasses the school's local literacy plan that they have developed, and it emphasizes the preservation of the Native Ojibwe language and culture. The overall goal of this initiative is for the youth to hear the Ojibwe language being spoken by the elders and as well as the cultural staff. The cultural project-based learning activities are intended to preserve the knowledge of the Ojibwe culture. Their theme, their overarching theme, was harvesting wild rice, which brings together family and community members, and that's their way of implementing family and community engagement. This project allows for cultural teachings from the elders and ensures the youth develop the knowledge and practices of harvesting the wild rice organically. So I just wanted to mention that this was what was outlined in their local literacy plan, and they were very successful in implementing it and seeing it through. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Monica to go in depth, explaining how they brought this to fruition, and it was hard work that they put into this project. So go ahead and take it from here, Monica.
The processes of the initiative, the overarching theme unit, Manuminake, Harvesting Wild Rice. Number 1, Native Ojibwe Language. 2, Cultural Project-Based Learning, PBL. And Family and Community Engagement. Next slide, please. Okay. Traditional practices such as harvesting wild rice, manuminake, involve the Ojibwe language, which strengthens the communal ceremonies that we strive to keep in our community. Pictured on this slide is a cover of a book that I personally use and other teachers use also. It's a youth and family activity guide for classroom discussion, but it can be adaptable for any grade level using teacher creativity. Topics include history. For example, wild rice has grown in the Lake Superior region for thousands of years. Also the wetlands, discussion on high-level nutrients. Nutrition, high in protein, low in fat. And environmental issues such as increased water level, shoreline development, beaver, carp, historic logging, and within the past 10 years or so, purple loosestrife, and just recently frost. And of course, language, teaching hands-on Ojibwe, and we do that with the steps of processing. The first step is Binda Kujige, she makes a tobacco offering, and this is for water safety. We have some beautiful lakes here, but it's they're kind of dangerous at some point in time, and so we also ask for a good harvest. Ganda Kiage, she pulls a canoe. Usually 2 people are in a canoe. One person uses a long pole to guide the canoe through the rice beds. Bawa she knocks the rice into the canoe, and this is done by 2 cedar sticks, which is a really light wood, so it's really gentle as it allows the rice to fall into the canoe. If some of the rice falls back into the lake, it is meant for reseeding the lake. So that would be for next year's crop. So there's no wasting of the rice. Basage, the wild rice is drying, and this can be done either on the shoreline or it can be taken to personal home sites. Next slide, please. The cultural-based learning activities provide students with direct hands-on learning. It's an investment in cooperation, teamwork, and restoring cultural knowledge. Students have a higher sense of belonging, a greater self-esteem in knowing who they are, and research indicates this allows for higher achievement levels in the schools. And to continue with the steps of processing, Gidasage is parching the rice, and this is where a kettle is placed over a fire to continually dry the rice after it is collected, and it's actually to loosen the chaff or the husks. Mimi Gushkom, she is threshing or dancing on the rice. There's a picture of one of our young parents. He puts on a clean pair of moccasins and gently dances on the rice, and this is to further loosen the chaff or husks. Dushkajage, she is winnowing the rice. This is usually done by using a large birch bark basket, but due to low birch bark resources that we are experiencing nowadays, a tray may be used. And the rice is simply tossed lightly in the breeze, which continually assists with the husk removal. Bean it, tune, clean it, and as you take a look on the top left part of it, you see some beautiful rice, but you can also see that there's still some husks within the rice. So it's simply cleaned by hand. And the last step, Zagaswewe, she gives a feast. This is for a feast for thanks for a safe harvest and also for the rice. This helps us to get through the winter, as well as used for specific ceremonies. Next slide. This is just family and community engagement. You can see here, you can actually see this is the gidaske, the parching process. And this is a picture of maybe 1 or 2 families. Sometimes there's just one family that processes the rice, but then sometimes there's more. So it's kind of a really community, a good time for the community. And the other picture, I just wanted to add on that there's an elder there that helps the teacher just to help with the language or to help with the process, and also for our own students. Next slide. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Andrea.
Thank you very much, Monica. What we have showcased here is what the school themselves put together. And then in the end, there's always the question of, well, how do you evaluate such a large thematic unit project? So the school had to become very creative in collecting the outcome of data. And the data illustrating impact was pretty much a creative approach they had to come up with. So a lot of it encompassed teacher-made assessments for the Ojibwe language as it relates to the cultural project-based learning activities that are conducted for the students. They rely heavily on surveys. Surveys are conducted to seek feedback from the parents and family to evaluate the community engagement piece of it. And then attendance is taken for students, and also a sign-in sheet is collected from the parents and community and elder members who do participate in these projects. So some of the success and challenges that involved this thematic approach was that this success is that the students obtain knowledge of the Ojibwe language and culture traditions of harvesting wild rice. The parent and community survey feedback is always very positive. The students' attendance participation is always high, and as well as the turnout with the family engagement piece of it, community engagement, which can be people from, you know, the staff to the parents to tribal elders and just family members that want to participate in this activity. So one of their major challenge is always a factor of Mother Nature. Good outdoor weather is necessary to conduct the cultural project-based learning activity as it takes place out on the lakes, as Monica previously mentioned. And the waters need to be calm for this to be successful. We did see some pictures that illustrated them being in a canoe. The weather is very unpredictable, so therefore rain and major storms can often be a challenge. So the use of the data is that the teachers rely heavily on the teacher-made assessments to determine if students are retaining the knowledge that has been provided. Again, this also includes the oral Ojibwe language assessment. The school tries to ensure a strong Indigenous family structure to promote community engagement in order to sustain the traditional Ojibwe practices of processing the wild rice, which is considered a sacred cultural food. So that is how the school approaches their methods of evaluating this practice that they implement at the school. So in conclusion, as you can see, the school was able to implement the local literacy plan while successfully embedding the Native Ojibwe language and culture with the participation of the family and community. The school did an outstanding job in recognizing that promoting literacy can also occur using Indigenous languages. BIE continues to support the CLSD subgrantees who implement targeted interventions to promote and develop these languages and cultures in younger generations. This initiative is a creative partnership between students and their tribal elders. So this is to try to bridge that gap between, you know, the loss of language, the loss of culture, and really bringing together the community to promote the native language, and as well as preserving some of their traditional practices as it relates to food. So that will pretty much conclude our presentation. I'm sure there's going to be lots of questions, and we'll go ahead and use this time to answer questions if they are out there. And
I have a question. I'm assuming that you took the vocabulary for the harvest and provided that to the students and the instructors in advance. Is that something that you met with the elders to discuss with them, all the different steps in the harvest and the terms that go along with that? Or is that common information, common knowledge that the teachers would have already known? Like, how did you go about finding out, just exactly what all the steps were in putting that as part of the project-based learning for the students to learn?
Well, the school has been in existence since 1976. So over the process of the years, it started out with a lot of elder teachings, and then the teachers just naturally pick up, the language. And so we spent a lot of time over the years learning all this ourselves as teachers, and we were able to pass that on with the help, again, of, a new set of elders.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thanks so much, Kim. Other clarifying questions? Feel free to either unmute yourself and ask, or you can type them in the chat and I can grab them from there. Whatever works best for you. So I'll ask a clarifying question real quick while folks are trying to either get unmuted or be able to type in the chat. What were your greatest challenges as you have been working again to sort of engage in this project and this work?
The greatest challenges, I suppose, sometimes we have a turnover of teachers, and then we have to reteach teachers again. But then we've had other teachers that have been here for years and years, so they also assist with anything that we need to have clarified with the new teachers.
Perfect. And Shelby said they have a grantee that would like to go in a similar route to this project. So what are some of the steps that you took to implement this? And then do you have any words of wisdom or advice?
I think the steps that I took to implement this was to assist in some curriculum where we could actually work on some historical issues that would be interest to this specific grade band level. And I think that's about it. I don't really have too many issues, but it was exciting. This group that I worked with was with the Lac Courte Oreilles Ojibwe Community College, and also with UW-Madison and UW-Eau Claire. So we were able to have all these partnerships that could help us out a lot, and then we could also in turn teach them a few things about our culture and language.
Excellent. So, sorry, go ahead.
Were you able, excuse me, were you able to do the actual activity, the harvesting and that during school hours? Or was that something that you had to, kind of do that as a culminating project on the weekend and activity on the weekend?
No, we were able to do that right during school. We actually took our big buses out to the lake, And we had different grade levels go out there. We just didn't take the full school. But yeah, that's how we've done it. We do, it's considered the ultimate hands-on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Fabulous. Other clarifying questions? So then just really quick back to Shelby's question about any words of wisdom. Is there anything where, you know, if someone's trying to start implementing a project-based learning approach like this, any advice or any pitfalls you'd recommend them avoiding? And this is Monica or Andrea. Either one of you can address this.
Hi, this is Andrea. Sure, we can, I can give a couple of just recommendations. One being, actually this presentation came as a, you know, we weren't expecting to be invited to do this. This actually stemmed from one of the conversations that we were having in the community of practice a couple months back. And when the question was asked with one of the sub-grantees, I don't remember which state exactly, but I know that they were serving indigenous communities, and I'm pretty sure it was either up north or some of the outerlying islands, you know, posing the question if the literacy grant could be utilized to fund, you know, cultural based projects where they were trying to address the literacy needs in the indigenous language. So that's really where this kind of stemmed from. And I had to simply, you know, answered the question because that one of the sub-grantees was struggling with that. And so, you know, I mentioned that with the Bureau of Indian Education, some of our grantees do embed their native language and culture into their local literacy plan, to where they really put the money towards purchasing maybe literacy books that are printed with their native language, and then they create these lessons and these projects where they are promoting the indigenous language and they're promoting the knowledge of the culture, and then, you know, partnering with their elders and other people of the community to promote the preservation of the language and the culture. So I had given that example as like, yes, you know, you certainly can do that. So, but of course you have to be very creative in the ways that you do approach that. So this was one of the school that was very successful in being able to do that and seeing it all the way through. We do have a few more sub-grantees that have been able to do the same approach. So it's just a matter of really being creative and really making sure that you do have access to resources, and resources could include anything that is maybe the book that is written in the native language that, you know, you're trying to do this project with, or maybe there's lessons that teachers need to develop. As with the, this particular school, the teachers had to make their own oral language assessments as it pertains to the native language. So they had to become very creative in that as well, and collaborating, and like Monica mentioned, kind of creating that curriculum around it. So it's just a matter of planning. It's a matter of being very creative in exactly what you're approaching. And so those would be my recommendations. And what I really look for in their local literacy plan is how is it pertaining to literacy? Is it print material? Is it, you know, how is the native language being preserved as it relates to literacy? So that's what I really look for when I am reviewing their applications and their program plans that they do submit from year to year. So that's kind of my input on, you know, how I work with my sub-grantees when they do address the area of Indigenous language and culture.
Thanks, Andrea. Monica, is there anything you'd like to add?
Well, I've been a teacher for many, many years, and I've always tried, as long, and including my peers or my cohorts, we always try to be bilingual in teaching anything. And we always try to make comparisons between our culture and language, because we feel it like I said before, it adds to self-esteem and creativity and interest, not only inside the classroom, but outside the classroom. So I truly, truly
Absolutely.
enjoy project-based learning because it offers literacy not only in English, but in Ojibwe.
Yeah, and so I'm going to kind of circle back around to something Andrea mentioned, which is sort of the tie back into literacy. And I'm thinking a lot about just the oral language traditions of some of the indigenous languages and culture. So can you talk a little bit about how like oral language is, you know, sort of connected to the literacy component, how you're sort of focusing on the oral language piece of it?
Well, we try to focus in sometimes using storytelling. So, and it's not only a story that's in English, but then we translate it to Ojibwe. And most recently, we've been translating tiny books for children to use with Unite for Literacy people. So I guess it's just a big tie back.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Are there any other clarifying questions before we move into our discussion component? All right, then I just want to thank Andrea and Monica as well for sharing with us. And then obviously they're going to be standing by for the peer discussion. They'll be participating in the discussion. And then obviously as we bring it back together full circle, there may be some additional areas that they want to sort of tie back into. So we are going to, oops, my apologies, guys. I'm going to go to the other slide. So we are going to go into just a really quick breakout so you guys have a chance to process just as you've been listening and actively thinking around your own experiences, tying this back into your context, and then making some of those connections yourself. I want to give you a chance to do that together in small groups. So as you go into your breakouts, just think about either how an approach like project-based learning has worked for you and share some ideas again about this approach. Offer an idea that you're considering or have considered. So maybe one thing you've talked about in your state would be, you know, some ideas that you have. Or you could maybe reference templates, tools, or resources. So maybe you've attended a workshop on project-based learning, or you've got a tool that you use. Again, coming back to this preservation of language and thinking about how you might have been able to connect the dots with some of your own subgrantees or in your own states. Awesome. So as I go ahead and move folks into breakouts, I'm going to go ahead and stop recording.